Now let's take a look at control statements in Kotlin. Almost any business logic that you write is going to be in the form of either an if and else block or a when block. So let's see why we choose one over the other. Let me create a file called conditionals, and let's make this a main function. So if and else statements are pretty straightforward. You essentially use the keyword if and then use a boolean value here. So let's create a variable called command, and we'll give it a value m. And here all we're going to do is do an equality check for command and print something. So we're just going to print good morning here. So as you can see, you can write the if block without an else statement. So this is perfectly fine. If this value is something, it is going to execute this block. However, if you wanted to do something else, then you can pair it with an else block. And then you would just write code for your else block. In this case, we're going to print good day. So you could throw in a bunch of else if blocks in the middle. So I could just simply check some other condition here using an else if block. And here I'm just going to check whether the command is equal to something and print something else. And that's pretty much what we have for if, else if, and else block. So as you can see in real-time application, this can quickly become a tangled mass of mess. So you really don't want that because it'll be extremely difficult to read, error prone, and as you can see, there is a squiggly line here also, which says that cascade if should be replaced with when block. So it's a good rule of thumb that if there are like two else blocks, then you should change it to a when statement. The when statement looks something like this. So we're going to convert this into a when block. So let's use the when keyword and then put in a command and then make a block. And here we're going to check the equality. So in this case, we are just going to check the equality for this and then execute something related to that. So you can either pair this alone or you can have an else block just like in the if block. So in this case, let's make this E and finally print good evening. And have an else block as well. Keep in mind these could be just lines, just a statement, or these could be block of code. So you could put them in braces and write in some business logic in them. So I could do like val a is equal to something and then execute some business logic and then finally execute the final line of code. So these blocks of code are essentially what is known as a statement. So you are executing this as a statement. They don't return anything. They do some block and they execute this piece of code right there. You could technically use these as expressions. Expressions return a value. So let's say you want to use this as expressions. You could assign this to a specific variable. And then instead of doing a println, you would just write the string that is to be returned. So you don't need to use an explicit return statement here. All you would need to do is just execute that specific value that you want to assign to this variable. And you could use this as a return statement in a function as well. So let's say I have a private function. I'll call this getGreeting. And it will take a command which is of type string. So command of type string, and it will also have a return type of type string. So we'll denote a colon and the return type as type string. And what you could do is you could just directly return this as an expression. And that's it. So easy and straightforward. You're executing some piece of code here and you are returning some value which in this case is a form of a string. And you could do this with your if statement as well. So I could write this, instead of using the when, I could do an if statement here, and instead of doing a println, I am going to return that. Right there, and I'm going to delete the last block, and there we have it. So of course I would use a when instead of this, because there is more than one else block, and that's pretty much it. So you could use these as statements, or you could use these as an expression which returns a value.